Hey, bud. Let's party.
Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation. Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great.
Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Time for Toker Talk Radio. Our phone lines are open at 650-LEGAL-MJ. That's 650-534-2565. If you've got questions about marijuana legalization, maybe it's about to go into effect in your state, but you don't know how much you can have or where you can get it or how you can grow it or who you can give it to, we've got the answers here. If it has to do with the medical marijuana laws, the recreational marijuana laws, decriminalization laws, hell, I'll even tell you about industrial hemp. Give me a call at 650-LEGAL-MJ. That line is open 24 hours a day. You can leave a message if you like at 650-LEGAL-MJ. And I would encourage you to leave your Festivus and or holiday greetings. Remember, next week is Christmas on, Sunday is Christmas. And then Sunday is also Hanukkah, so the beginning of Hanukkah. So all next week will be Hanukkah week. You can send in your well wishes at 650-LEGAL-MJ. To start this hour, I want to make note of a post from the fired up lawyer, Lauren Vasquez, out there. She was a major part of the Prop 64 campaign to legalize marijuana in California. And she is named the most fired up pot activist of 2016. In the list, she is noted Students for Sensible Drug Policy, SSDP, fantastic group of college-age kids fighting for not just marijuana policy, but drug policy. So they deal with ecstasy and pill testing and safe injection sites and all that kind of stuff, too. SSDP, great organization. Check them out at ssdp.org. Mickey Norris and Chris Conrad, the fired-up power couple, were critical to Prop 64's victory. They formed Friends of Prop 64 and spent countless hours debunking the online trolls, the stoners against legalization who wanted Prop 64 to fail. Also, the San Diego Prop 64 team is made note as a fired-up activist in 2016. They held down San Diego, a critical region for the Prop 64 campaign. Bud Green was also noted. He's an online activist and spent countless hours, again, debating the trolls and stoners against legalization online. And also noted as a fired-up pot activist for 2016, it's me, Radical Russ Belville. What do you know? Hooray. Yes, I was noted for standing up to stoners against legalization since the Prop 19 campaign in 2010. Talked about my show, traveling the country, and so forth. I was also part of a Prop 64 debate in October against the stoners against legalization. So, yes, thank you very much, Lauren. Thanks for the accolades. And given the company I was mentioned with, I really appreciate that because nobody's kicked more ass and taken more names than Mickey Norris and Chris Conrad. I got to say that. All right, coming up in hour two, we've got a couple other topics to talk about today. A great study that has come out saying that people at higher risk for schizophrenia are likelier to smoke cannabis. Sounds familiar, but usually the way we get this handed to us is, you see cannabis, if you smoke more cannabis, you're more likely to have schizophrenia. This one's turning it around, saying if you're more likely to have schizophrenia, you're more attracted to cannabis. This may have a lot to do in explaining that correlation that we see with it never showing an increase in how much schizophrenia there is, no matter how much cannabis is used. If it works the direction this study says, that makes sense. No matter how many schizophrenics they are, they're going to want cannabis. Makes more sense. Also, after our safety briefing, we'll take a look at the state of Texas and some of the moves there happening where they're tiptoeing toward decriminalization in the Lone Star State. That's some great stuff, folks. We got all that and plenty more coming up in hour 2. Toker Talk Radio, live from beautiful legal Portland, Oregon, and Delta 9 Studios. We're back right after these messages.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Every strain, every sale, every medical study. Keep it right here on the Cannabis Radio Network.
Do you want to get in on the booming cannabis industry? With New Frontier Data, we give industry insiders the power of big data analytics to help navigate this rapidly growing and changing landscape. New Frontier's tools help you make critical decisions based on the facts. Our industry analyst reports reveal the best opportunities, our custom research engagements deliver answers to the most difficult questions, and our cutting-edge big data platform, Equio, puts real-time information and answers you need right at your fingertips. Go to www.equio.io and sign up for your free membership today. That's EQUIO.io to sign up now. The power of real-time big data is now in your hands. Run with New Frontier and let us help you conquer the wild.
Mentions the Stoner Jesus Show podcast on CannabisRadio.com. And don't try to debate me on something. Motherfucker, I can't do many things well, but words are my shit.
The Stoner Jesus Show, live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Or find the Stoner Jesus Show podcast on demand at CannabisRadio.com and StonerJesus.net.
Peace, bitches.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
We need to build a wall.
Okay. Maybe you're high, too.
Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome.
I have a package here for Radical Rick. Is there a Radical Rick here? How about a Rick Russ? Any Rick Russ? Somebody named Freddie Barack has sent him a package. Anybody? What is that? Sounds like a skunk. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Today in hour 2, I want to take a look at this study that I picked up on. This was researchers from the University of Bristol have found an opposite association between cannabis use and schizophrenia. This is something that we've discussed many times on the show, especially in our cannabis Q&A segment with Dr. Mitch Earlywine. And our opponents like to tout this a lot. They like to say how cannabis use is associated with schizophrenia or is more likely to lead schizophrenics to have a schizophrenic break or a psychotic break, how it supposedly is this problem for people with, or leading to problems with mental illness. And we've always criticized that. We've always said, look, that seems to be looking at the problem backwards. It's not that marijuana use leads people to schizophrenia. It's that schizophrenia leads people to marijuana use. It's that people that are beginning to have these schizophrenic symptoms, the voices in their head or the stress or whatever else, tend to want cannabis. They tend to seek out some sort of self-medication. And part of how we've backed this up over the years is by noting that despite cannabis use rates rising and falling throughout the decades, from what was it, a few 100,000 cannabis smokers in the early 1900s, according to Harry J. Anslinger, to over 30 million cannabis smokers now. We saw the peak of young cannabis use, ages 18 to 25. That peak came around 1978, 79, where there was about 60% of the high school seniors that admitted to trying marijuana. We saw that peak in the late 70s. We saw it trough down there in the early 90s. Around 1992, we saw the lowest rates at the time, of kids using marijuana. And regardless, going all the way back to the early century when few people used it, 70s, a lot of people did, the 80s, it went down, the 90s, it went back up, and now we're up to 30 million people using cannabis. And yet the schizophrenia rates, they stay around 1%. No matter where you look in the legal states, the medical states, the prohibition states, countries like America, countries like the United Kingdom, Australia, you look at their rates of psychotic break, their rates of schizophrenia, their rates of mental illness, don't correlate with the rise and fall in cannabis use. So it would seem quite obvious that if there were some sort of correlation, more cannabis use would lead to more schizophrenia. Doesn't seem to be happening. That gives us credence to our belief that it's the schizophrenia that leads to the cannabis. Well, now we get this study that's backing us up. University of Bristol researchers. Now, they say they still need more in-depth research of this, but they revealed, according to the story in Tech Times, quote, people at high risk of schizophrenia tend to try marijuana. That's just the fact. Dr. Susie Gage is the researcher involved with this, said the findings suggest that individuals with schizophrenic risk are more likely to use cannabis. She says the association could be functioning in both directions, that there's still possible that the cannabis leads to the schizophrenia and the schizophrenia leads to cannabis, but the study doesn't accurately relate the risk of schizophrenia with marijuana use. So in this study, in the press release, they said, quote, in this study, we could only look at cannabis initiation. What would really help progress this research is to use genetic variants that predict heaviness of cannabis use, as it seems that heavy cannabis use is most strongly associated with the risk of schizophrenia. The study's out today in the Journal of Psychological Medicine. This is University of Bristol in the UK. They found a causal link between trying the drug and an increased risk of the condition. A causal link. Having schizophrenia causes more likelihood of trying cannabis. Dr. Susie Gage said, quote, the evidence suggested that schizophrenia risk predicts the likelihood of trying cannabis. And continuing, saying, our results use a novel method to attempt to untangle the association between cannabis and schizophrenia, while we find stronger evidence that schizophrenia risk predicts cannabis use rather than the other way around. It doesn't rule out a causal risk of cannabis use on schizophrenia. What will be interesting is digging deeper into the potential subpopulations of cannabis users who may be at greater risk and getting a better handle on the impact of heavy cannabis use. Seems pretty strong evidence to me here. Again, it just seems simple common sense that if cannabis use caused schizophrenia, we'd be seeing a lot more schizophrenia these days. Now, we'd also like to find more research on the amount being used here and whether or not there is a level at which cannabis use could be beneficial to people with schizophrenia, but harmful if they use more. We found this in other respects when it comes to cannabis. Some of the pain relief aspects of cannabis, we find that, especially with the neuropathic pain, we find that a moderate amount of cannabis helps, but too much, and you've actually exacerbated the pain. You've become more aware of the pain. This is something that is also going to be benefited by the legalization of marijuana. We've talked about medical marijuana a lot, and this is something that, kind of falls under medical marijuana, but medical marijuana is always hamstrung by the fact that it doesn't exist in a vacuum. Now, this goes to another story that is in the news lately, and it's how Governor Hickenlooper out there in Colorado is trying to ratchet back the home grow provisions for people in Colorado. The problem isn't the recreational side, because the Amendment 64 in Colorado limits the grows there to 6 plants per household. But it's the medical side, the Amendment 20, the original medical marijuana amendment in Colorado, which allows patients to grow up to 99 plants with a doctor's recommendation. And they're saying this is too difficult to enforce. It's leading some of these people to get a card and then be able to grow massive amounts of weed, supply themselves black market, avoid the tax, ship it out of state, make great profit, and so forth. Also allowed in Colorado right now are collective grows. That is, I get my 6 plants and you get your 6 plants and we get his 6 plants, but all of our 6 plants end up in the same sort of collective. And that too leads to these big grows that they feel are just diverting tax revenue and increasing black market. Now, the problem that exists here is the problem that's kind of unique to marijuana. And that is, it can be both a life-saving medicine and a luxury stoner item, a luxury mind-altering substance, right? And that makes policy difficult. Because at weednews.co, one of our writers out there, Jason Barker, he's a great writer and a medical marijuana advocate out in New Mexico, points out the relationship between the doctor and the patient, right? Why should the government get involved in that relationship? And that a patient who has cancer and is going through chemotherapy might need, a half a kilogram of weed, in order to make his RSO for the next, 5-6 weeks, his Rick Simpson's oil. And I am sympathetic to that point. That the cancer patient, the AIDS patient, these people are going to need huge amounts. They're going to need to grow 99 plants so they can have enough to make their highly concentrated, super medicinal oils that keep them alive. The problem is those same plants are also a windfall to the recreational grower who wants to pack them up and ship them to Chicago and make $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a pound. It's the same thing. Medical marijuana is fungible. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's the same damn product. So how do you set up a policy that recognizes, hey, the cancer patient needs 99 plants, but the guy with the knee ache, the guy with the back pain, the guy with the anxiety or PTSD probably doesn't need that much? And that means you're going to have this spectrum, right? You're going to have this spectrum of people highly deserving of 99 plants all the way to undeserving of 99 plants, from absolutely using it for medical use all the way to definitely using it to make black market profit. And where do you draw the line? Well, you'd think you'd draw the line at the doctor, right? The point that Jason makes of, the government getting in the doctor-patient relationship is valid if we knew that all doctors were upstanding and ethical. But as we know from 20 years of medical marijuana, there's plenty of people out there who didn't graduate the top of their medical class that are more than willing to write a 99 plant recommendation for anybody who asks for it. So what do you do? Fortunately, Colorado's medical marijuana is a constitutional amendment. And so they can't just make some sort of law or regulation that restricts the medical growers from getting their 99 plants. But that's going to leave that loophole wide open, and the regulators are going to want to close it. They're going to want to close it for the tax revenue. They're going to want to close it to avoid the shenanigans of selling it out to the black market. And I don't know exactly how to address this. I do. I do know how to address this. Legalize marijuana in all 50 states. Allow adults to have as much of it as they want. It sounds exactly counterintuitive to what Governor Hickenlooper wants to do, but that's the real only solution. The only thing that is requiring these limits in the legal states is the fact that we still have illegal states where there's huge profit to be made because of prohibition. Legalize it everywhere, and this won't be an issue. Of course, we're a ways off on that, aren't we? So in the meantime, we got to keep playing this dance with the regulators about limiting purchase amounts, limiting grow amounts, raising taxes, all this kind of stuff. It's going to be a headache for a few years now. But we'll keep fighting the battle. Hey, happy 420 from the Pacific Time Zone. We got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about tokers in Texas.
We have your smoking section right here. This is the Cannabis Radio Network.
Mindful of sustainable practices and limiting their environmental footprint, Sansal hemp is always grown outdoors, as nature intended. By starting with uniform genetic profiles, Sansal ensures the plant will maintain its optimal performance and yield consistently throughout its life cycle. It is through innovative processes that Sansal is able to achieve pure whole hemp extracts and meet industry requirements and the level of quality desired by many of their customers. Healthy plants, healthy people. SansalCBD.com. Improve your lifestyle naturally.
It's time for Cannabis Facts about teen drug use from Robert Platshorn's thesilvertour.org. This message is supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com. A recent survey by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control indicates that in states that have legalized medical marijuana, the rate of marijuana consumption among high school students has not increased. In fact, in legal states like Colorado, teen use has actually decreased significantly. It's simply no longer a big deal for teenagers in legal states. This was Cannabis Facts from thesilvertour.org, an educational nonprofit supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com.
The Russ Belville Show. Chat is for friends 18 and older. We expect our chat to be civil, mature, and free from excessive profanity. If you don't like these rules, there are approximately 6 billion other chat rooms with lower standards that you can visit.
When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The law office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com.
Remember, friends, there's more to life than marijuana. I just can't remember what it is. Why'd I come in here? This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
All right, welcome back, everybody. 23 after the hour. Hope you had a great safety briefing. Quick reminder that we'll be on the air tomorrow with another live program here at CannabisRadio.com. But coming up over the next 2 weeks, we'll be off on, actually the next 4 weeks. 3 out of 4 Mondays we'll be off. Because we'll be off the 26th because that's Christmas federal holiday. We'll be off the 2nd for the New Year's federal holiday. And we'll be off on the 16th for Martin Luther King federal holiday. So that's all coming up here in the next month. Also my 49th birthday coming up next month. I will go from being 4 dozen years old to being 7 squared. For you nerds out there, I'll be 7 squared, and then I'll be L for my Roman numeral fans out there. And speaking of L, I'm trying to continue my 50 states by age 50 goal. For those of you who are newer listeners to the program, I have a tattoo on my back of the United States. And in every city in which I do a marijuana legalization gig or report, I place a pot leaf. And so with this, I have been now in the past 10, 11 years of my activism, I've done an event in, I think it's like 69 cities in 23 states and 3 foreign countries. So I've got 23 of the states down. I want to get the other 27. It's going to take some work. So if you know of an event, especially if you're listening to me from a red state, and you know of a cannabis event where I could come speak or report from, please let me know. I'm radicalruss@gmail.com. You can send me an email. I would love to fly out to your red state and do a presentation on marijuana legalization, take some questions and answers. Coming up in May, I may have the opportunity to do just that in 6 states that I have never appeared in before. We may be going to Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, although I've done Nashville before, so Tennessee's not new, Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, and Indianapolis, Indiana. So if you're in that swath of the United States come May, you may get a chance to see this show live. Wouldn't that be fun? I sure would enjoy it. Also looking to get around the New England states. I still have yet to do an event in New Hampshire, Vermont, or Maine, or Rhode Island, or Connecticut, or New York. Well, I've done New York. But we'll get Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont, I believe, next September. I'll take some time out after the Boston Freedom Rally and see if we can make that happen. So, again, try to do all 50 states by age 50. I think the hardest one for me to get to is going to be Hawaii. I'm going to have to do something real special to make it out to Hawaii, but we'll see what we can do. All right, let's take some of the news. Take a look at some of the news that's out there. One of the stories that came across my news feed today kind of cracked me up. This is out of Forbes.com, talking about the new luxury marijuana marketplace. Yes, the new now that marijuana is legal, you got people with more money than sense that want to spend it on all sorts of marijuana things. Now, I don't fault anybody that wants to spend on this high-end stuff, right? You want to buy a yacht, buy a yacht. That's America. Have some fun. What I do think is funny, though, is just what people are willing to spend it on. That's, I don't know, not really more flash than substance here in a lot of this situation. It's like, remember back in the day, everybody's got that guy who had the super high-end bong. The guy that goes and buys the $500-$600 bong, the 4-footer, and it's got all the perks and the little twists, and and you never use it because it's a bitch to clean, right? It just sits there and looks expensive. And really, people buy that kind of stuff, I think, just to show off, show that they can buy a $5,000 bong or something, right? So anyway, this piece in Forbes talks about the new luxury marijuana marketplace, and they're focusing on a group or a company that makes what's called the Gold Box, the A Box, or AU. AU meaning the periodic table for the element of gold, AU, right? So this Gold Box, it's like this Bark Box and these other box companies that every month they send you a care package full of stuff. Well, this is the super high-end marijuana box that they're sending to people. The kind of stuff that comes with a high-end black box, comes with THC-infused coffee, 24-karat gold rolling papers, THC-infused handcrafted marshmallows, $3,000 joints. I mean, it's just some of the stuff people will spend money on, right? A 1-month trial is $150. It's $120 for 6 months, $100 a month for a 1-year subscription. So for $1,000 every month, they can send you highly expensive marijuana stuff. Another company is called Club M. They've got a box that retails for $1,000. They've got another one that's a $2,000 box. Memberships, $97 a month, invitation only. And then up in Seattle, one of the operators up there, Diego Pellicer, they model themselves off of kind of a Spanish cigar kind of model. And their store recently sold a marijuana cigar for $3,600 for a marijuana cigar. Now, according to the report, the marijuana cigar had 28 grams of flour and 7 grams of oil. Wow. 28 grams of flour. So an ounce of flour and a quarter ounce of oil for $3,600. Marijuana legalization is going to make most of the weed cheaper, but in this case, it's making it far more expensive. You know how much flour and oil I can get you for $3,600? But again, for these people blowing this kind of money, it's not about that. They've got all the money they could ever need. They're never worried about being able to pay the rent. They're not eagerly sitting by the mailbox waiting for the checks to come in. And, more power to them. This is going to create jobs. It'll create jobs for growers and shippers and packagers and all that kind of stuff. It's interesting to me because it puts marijuana on a much broader consumer spectrum than it's ever been. Right? The spectrum has always been limited to pretty much dirt weed, mid-grade, high-end, or top shelf, whatever you call it, right? This spectrum of just 3 levels, right? Poor, middle class, and rich. That's all we've had. Now this spectrum is going to get much, much broader. I think we're going to get this down to, there's going to be the Marlboro weed, the Walmart weed, whatever you want to call it, mass-produced, outdoor-grown, machine-trimmed and rolled, mid-grade, decent THC. You're going to see that down to, a buck of smoke or less. That's going to be that's going to be your, $50 an ounce weed. And then that range is going to extend all the way up into this high end. I mean, we are only scratching the surface of what we're going to get as far as marijuana products go. Already, we're starting to see the advent of this THC crystal. Heard about this stuff? The 99.7% pure THC. This is beyond extract, folk. This is like, absolute concentration. This is your Everclear of THC. 97, like just a white crystalline THC. That's the direction this is going. And all sorts of products infused with this or sprinkled with this or mixed with that. We're going to see all sorts of artificial addition of terpenes into some of our products. We're going to see genetically modified cannabis. Hey, let's graft on, let's splice in a little bit of hops gene into this cannabis here. Let's make it produce more myrcene. Let's make it produce more limonene. Let's make it produce more beta-caryophyllene, right? That's the level this is going to get to really quickly. We're going to see all sorts of possibilities when it comes to the marijuana products we see. Now, another story out there, this is a news brief that we want to get to. A court ruling in Arizona that is a setback for prosecutors in medical pot DUI cases is just updated. Medical marijuana users cannot be convicted of driving while under the influence of the drug, absent proof they were actually impaired. The State Court of Appeals ruled Thursday. In a major setback to prosecutors, the judges pointed out that Arizona, unlike some other states, has no law that spells out that at a certain level of THC in the blood, a person is presumed to be impaired. And according to the evidence here, there is no scientific consensus about the concentration of THC that generally is sufficient to impair a human being, according to one of the judges. What that means is in every case where prosecutors charge a medical marijuana user with breaking the law, requires an expert testimony to show that the particular individual was impaired at that particular level of THC. This is good news for our side, and something that this ought to be the case in every state, and not just for medical marijuana consumers. Unfortunately, we've got it so ingrained into our heads since the 1980s that you can run some sort of blood test, run some sort of breath test, and get a magic number that tells you exactly that someone's impaired or not impaired. Now, that science is already a little fuzzy when we're talking about alcohol, because people have different tolerance levels. Some people tolerate alcohol better than others. But even at least that science has some basis in reality, has some factual basis to it. It is a dose-dependent relationship. We do see it fairly consistently, this impairment when it comes to alcohol. I still don't agree with laws that convict us based on the content of our bodily fluids. I will fight that till my dying day, that we ever get judged by a court based on the constituency of our body, the constituents in our body. But that's a fight that'll have to wait a little while. Right now, let's talk about the marijuana fight. And the fact is, every responsible scientist will tell you there is no magic number for marijuana. You cannot say X amount of THC equals impairment. Cannot be done. Now, part of what's frustrating about this debate is the fact that driving under the influence of marijuana has always been illegal. Legalization did not invent cars and driving. Legalization didn't suddenly make driving while stoned legal. So, over these past 4 or 5 decades of people smoking pot and driving, some of them have been busted and gotten DUIs and been convicted. So, what changed? Well, what is it now that's going to prevent us from prosecuting and convicting people who are impaired under the influence of marijuana? Nothing. Nothing has changed from the cop's perspective. The cop still needs to patrol the streets, observe the drivers, find the ones that are problematic, pull them over, investigate their current state of being by looking at their eyes, smelling their breath, seeing if there's any alcohol, smelling if there's any weed smell in the car, determining whether or not that requires further investigation, pull the person out of the car, do the field sobriety test. None of that's changed. That's exactly what they'll do now when it comes to marijuana. What the problem is here, here's my theory as to why these guys find it so problematic. Used to be, when marijuana was illegal, people driving around on it would be very careful. Oh, I don't want to get pulled over. I got a bag on me. The cop finds out I got a bag on me. He smells the weed in my car. Why? He could then find the bag, and then if he finds the bag, he could lock me up, take me off the road. So the cops figure that without that, without the ability to pull the person out of the car and arrest them immediately merely for having the bag, the stoners are going to get away with driving stoned. Well, that leads to one question. How could they get away with driving stoned? If driving stoned were such a problem, it would cause them to swerve and be noticed as impaired drivers. That's the thing that's unsaid in all of their concerns about stoned driving, is the fact that they need some sort of test, because without it, they can't tell we're stoned. That's the problem. It's not that they're going to pull someone over who's impaired and then not be able to bust them because it's pot. It's because they can't just pull over anybody for traffic things like they used to, and then based on smelling pot, elevate that to an impaired driving problem. There's no epidemic of people swerving and weaving and wrecking because of weed. If there were, again, like the schizophrenia we talked about earlier, wouldn't we have seen mass mayhem on the freeways by 1979, only to find a massive decrease of mayhem by 1992, only to see that mayhem increase after the 90s? No. All we've seen in all of the traffic fatality studies and data is a constant decline in road traffic fatalities, I should say. Nothing but a constant decline. Whether weed's gone up, whether weed's gone down, whether it's been prohibited, whether it's been medical, whether it's been legal, whether it's been decrimmed. Doesn't matter. A consistent decline. And a decline, by the way, that's happening at a greater rate in the states with more access to marijuana than in the states without. So this is a problem that doesn't exist. It's a solution in search of a problem. The cops are just bummed now because they just can't bust any stoner on the road they pull over. And they want a magic box that gives them that power again. And any sort of detection of marijuana metabolites in the breath, in the blood, in the urine, all it does is proves you're a stoner. Doesn't prove that you're stoned. And they're openly arguing for that. They're openly arguing they should have the right to just bust stoners. We found a stoner in a car, must be impaired. And that ain't the case. In fact, the studies show that once you account for age and gender, marijuana-using drivers have no greater risk of traffic crash than sober drivers. Quit picking on us, by God.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Earn your PhD in THC monetization with CannabisRadio.com. Don't be late.
Equio, New Frontier's cutting-edge big data platform, puts the information and answers you need right at your fingertips in real time to help you more effectively run your cannabis business. Go to www.equio.io to sign up for your free membership today. Again, that's www.equio.io. Run with New Frontier and let us help you conquer the wild.
Tommy Chong is ready to cut through the smoke and change the tone of Tilk Radio.
You're going to be a great-granddad. Pretty cool. Morgan is Ray Dawn's son. Morgan and his wife Tracy, they've been trying to have a baby for quite some time. Did you hear what I said to Morgan? What? Do you know who the father is?
The Tommy Chong Podcast, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome to my world.
Marijuana is not addictive, but listening to the Russ Belville Show is.
At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio.
Pod 2.0. It's not your father's Woodstock weed. This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 43 after the hour here in beautiful legal Portland, Oregon, coming to you live from Delta 9 Studios. And it's winter, folks. We're officially into winter because the sun is already down here in Portland. Yeah, 4:30, man. It's dark by 4:30. Cold and wet. Don't you feel bad for me? You can make my holiday wishes come true with the gift of filthy cash. That's right. We're making our holiday pledge drive this week and next week as we wind up 2016. It's your last chance to donate for this year. You can send it to me via PayPal, Russ at RadicalRuss.com on PayPal. I think I've also got donation links set up at RadicalRuss.com. If I don't, I'll get those set up by the weekend. But yeah, all sorts of events coming up in 2017, and most particularly what I'm raising money for right now is the International Cannabis Business Conference in Berlin, Germany. So I've got the hotel covered, I've got the event covered, but I got to raise some money for the plane ticket. And the sooner I buy it, the better as far as the prices go. So if you can help out with that, please do. And if you got a business or a brand that would like a shout out or an advertisement on the show, we've got those packages available too for 2017. Lots of big things happening. Lots of big surprises coming. So get in on the ground floor with the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com. Email me, radicalruss@gmail.com, if you have any questions. PayPal me, Russ at RadicalRuss.com, if you got some money. All right, let's go back to the news on marijuana today. And I want to follow up a little bit on a story from NPR that came out Sunday or Monday. I forget which day. But it was about this study on kids of pot smokers, babies. And they found in Colorado that these kids aged 1 month to 2 years that were hospitalized with bronchiolitis. So they took urine samples, sent them to the CDC, and found this. They had this new, highly sensitive test that could detect very low levels of marijuana metabolites. Found that 16% of those kids tested positive, and 75% of the kids whose caregivers said they'd been exposed to marijuana had traces of marijuana in their system. The researchers say, quote, there is a strong association between those who said there was someone in the home who used marijuana or a caretaker who used marijuana and the child having detectable marijuana levels. Now, this is a problem I find in a lot of reporting about marijuana, and that is detecting it is bad, per se. Just regardless. We don't have to go any farther than that. We found tiny levels of marijuana metabolites in these kids. That's bad. It's just bad. Is it? Now, taking the samples from the kids that had bronchiolitis is a little bit of a confounder. You're already starting with kids. It's not a randomized sample is what I'm saying. So we don't know what's going on here. We just know if someone has a kid and they smoke pot around the kid ends up with metabolites in their system. We don't yet know that that's a bad thing. But plenty of people try to paint it as if it is. First, they point on all these concentrations of THC cause developmental problems, and adolescence can cause the developing teenage brain to have problems, so forth. We're talking about high levels in these studies, and studies that aren't even necessarily accepted as scientific fact. But they jump right from a kid being exposed to secondhand marijuana smoke, possibly having a nanogram or two of metabolite in their system, to some study saying that teenagers who smoke pot all day, every day, might have problems with attention, motivation, and memory. That's how quickly, that's the jump they can make. That's how far they can leap to try to find something bad about this stat. They spoke to Dr. David Boyther, who's a pulmonologist, lung doctor, and he says their perception tends to be that it's safer than cigarette smoke, but he says they're wrong. Oh, here's his quote. There is no reason to believe that it is any safer than tobacco smoke exposure. End quote. No reason to believe that being exposed to cannabis smoke is safer than tobacco smoke. No reason to believe. Aside from perhaps Dr. David Tashkin, another pulmonologist who studied at the University of California, Los Angeles for 30 years worth of data, a retrospective, multivariate, huge data analysis of every study they could find, because Dr. Tashkin was damn sure, just like Dr. Boyther, that there's no reason to think that it's any safer than tobacco smoke. In fact, Dr. Tashkin believed it was worse. Dr. Tashkin went into that data saying, you know what? We're going to find that smoking gun, pardon the pun. We're going to find the smoking gun that shows that cannabis smoke causes cancer. We're going to find that it causes bronchitis. We're going to find that it causes COPD. And not just lung cancer. We'll look at the head cancers, the neck cancers, the throat cancers. We'll look at all that too. And he dug into that pile, 30 years worth of data, and guess what he found, Dr. Boyther? He found that not only was there no increased risk for head, neck, and lung cancers, no increased risk for COPD among the cannabis smokers, Dr. Tashkin found actually somewhat of a protective benefit. Dr. Tashkin found that the people that smoked cannabis actually had less chance of head, neck, and lung cancer, less incidence of COPD than non-smokers. That's right, not than tobacco smokers. Obviously, they did better than the tobacco smokers. They did better than the non-smokers. Maybe that's a reason to believe, perhaps, Dr. Boyther, that the cannabis smoke might be safer than the tobacco smoke. But he goes on. He says, quote, oh, no, wait, this is a second. This isn't Boyther. This is Wilson from the study, Dr. Karen Wilson, pediatrician, who says, quote, our hypothesis is that it is not good for kids. We strongly believe that once we do the research to document secondhand marijuana exposure, that we will see there is a negative effect on children, end quote. Okay, so somehow first-hand marijuana smoke is far safer than first-hand tobacco smoke. I mean, we see this from the fact that 400,000 people a year die from first-hand tobacco smoke, and what was that number again? Oh yeah, 0 die per year from the first-hand cannabis smoke. But once you inhale that smoke and then exhale it, they're equally dangerous? Is that how that works, right? Sure. First-hand kills 400,000, first-hand kills 0, but second-hand is somehow going to be equally dangerous for both of them. How does that work? The human lungs. How amazing the human lungs are to be able to convert relatively benign first-hand cannabis smoke into suddenly dangerous second-hand cannabis smoke. Ha 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 ha. According to Dr. Boyther says, quote, to a degree, we suffer from lack of evidence. Well, no shit. And why do we have a lack of evidence? Oh, yeah, because marijuana is Schedule 1 and we can't study it. Ha ha. So he continues by saying, quote, get it out of the house and away from your baby. Not in the car, not in the home. If someone wants to smoke marijuana, they need to do it outside, far away from your baby or your child. Because at this point, we believe the adverse health effects are probably as bad as secondhand cigarette smoke. Ha 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 ha. Oh, well, great, Dr. Boyther. Then that means you're going to be there at the city council meetings and at the State House testifying for our need for cannabis lounges so that we can get out of the house, so that we can get out of the car and have somewhere to smoke where the kids aren't. And I'm sure, Dr. Boyther, you'll be there testifying for the assembly about how we need to ban these, or how we need to end these ridiculous bans on outdoor smoking, on public smoking, on not having any sort of outdoor venue or location where cannabis smokers can use their product. We need to end these bans on keeping cannabis out of public view. Because these people you're saying that they should do it outside, far away from your baby or your child, where is that, Doc? Where is that where people can't see it and get yourself busted for some sort of public toking ticket? Where is it, Doc? You can't have it both ways. You can't rail about how harmful the secondhand smoke is to the babies, to the children, and it's always the goddamn children that we have to somehow nerf the world for so that a kid will never, ever be hurt.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
Yeah, we got to do that because, oh, God forbid, an infant ends up with 1 nanogram of inactive THC metabolite in their piss. Yeah, that's what we got to do. That's what we got to do. Can't have it both ways, guys. You've got to give us a place to smoke. If you're going to insist that we keep it out of public view, that we don't have a bar to smoke in, and that if our neighbors can see us on our back porch, they can report us, then you're going to have us smoking around our kids because it's the only place we can. One or the other, man. Make a choice here. And to be honest with you, I don't have kids, but I know a lot of tokers who do have kids, and most of the ones I know don't smoke around their kids. Most of the tokers I know keep it in the basement, keep it in the garage, keep it away from the kids for the most part. And until you can show me that a kid exposed to secondhand cannabis smoke is facing some sort of dire health risk, all of this is based on, well, it's better safe than sorry. It's better safe than sorry. We better just inconvenience the hell out of adults just to be safe. But we never seem to have that attitude with alcohol or tobacco. Never seem to have that attitude with alcohol or tobacco. Nobody's mandating that tobacco never be seen in public, never be advertised on billboards, never be seen by children. Nobody's advocating for bans on limits on how much alcohol you can purchase, limits on how much alcohol you can buy at any one time or have on you at any one time. No concerns about the kids being influenced by, there's no slowing down with the silver bullet tonight. No worries about that. That's all cool. They can have music and cartoon characters and all sorts of fun, magical, beautiful people, sexy people. That's all cool. Somehow with marijuana, though, we've all come to our senses. Somehow, well, we were too late for the tobacco. We were too late for the alcohol. We were too late for the pharmaceuticals. We were too late for the fast food. We were too late for the sugary cereals. We were too late for the corn syrup industry. But this time, by God, now that it's pot, oh, yes, yeah, by God, we'll make sure that it's safe for the public. Why? Because they're bullies. They're bigots and they're bullies. And they know they can't pick on those other entities because they're too big, too well established, got too many lawyers and too much money. But we're still infants. We're still new. We're still somewhat culturally looked down upon. We can still be picked on. Well, just like any bully, just like any bigot, you got to stand up to them. That's what we're doing here every day on the Russ Belville Show. Thanks for being a part of it. We're going to take a break and wind things up when we come back.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Forwarding the cause of legalization and research of the growing cannabis industry, one podcast at a time. The Cannabis Radio Network.
While the feds and state are doing their dance, you still need to transact business and manage your cash. Go professional and let your customers pay with PayQuick. They pay you and they earn rewards points. PayQuick connects to your bank account for free and secures all of your transactions. And with PayQuick, you can pay your producers and processors for free. Plus, it pays to have it because it makes depositing your cash safe and so easy. No cops, no crooks, just compliance and comfort, knowing you have your cannabis business in check with PayQuick. PayQuick, the safe and easy way to pay. PayQuick.com.
NORMAL stands for Responsible Adult Cannabis Use. If cannabis use is causing problems in your life, consider taking a break or seeking medical assistance. Consider ceasing cannabis use if you have a family history of mental illness. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery while impaired by cannabis use. Cannabis use is not without risks, even though the risks may be far less than those posed by legal drugs. Warning: hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals, or at least they pay me to say that. A public service message from CannabisRadio.com and the Russ Belville Show.
All right, folks, that sound means that's all the time we got for today's show. But thanks for joining us. Appreciate having you here. Make sure you tell your friends we're available live on CannabisRadio.com and through podcast at iHeartRadio and iTunes, as well as Stitcher and TuneIn. And coming in 2017, I'll be back up on YouTube and possibly also Facebook Live. We'll have a video feed here from Delta 9 Studios. Nothing fancy. You'll just see me talking into a mic. But, hey, some people like that, I guess. And getting ready this Christmas Eve, Vikings and Packers. Looking forward to that. And on Tuesday, Boise State plays Baylor. Got to have a bet with my friend Cliff Duvall out there in Waco. For everyone here at CannabisRadio.com and Delta 9 Studios, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!